We're going to talk a little short-term stock price action for NIO, and then also the big picture overview, the long-term. The ticker is the bottom of the screen, and that is what I've got as I'm still trying to track and get clarity with whether or not we are going to see a big move in the short term with, maybe an obvious uptrend with NIO stock. And so that's what those three sort of indicators are there for. Now on the screen, if you'll note here, the yellow represents the stock price for NIO. This is the whole history of NIO stock as it's traded in the US market. The white lines represent fails to deliver. That's when there could have been naked shorting or suppression or predatory shorting of the stock price to keep it down. We should get new data on that soon, so I'll come back and talk about it when we get it. But here's kind of what I'm thinking is short term, if we see some meteoric uptrend, major moves upside, I'd like to know about it this time, because I did not catch all this stuff happening. And one thing that did go on during that time frame is the fails to deliver. The white lines dropped off significantly. Now we never get this data real time. It's always lagged, delayed data. So we never get a true sense of what's happening behind the scenes with the stock price, whether or not perhaps it's being suppressed or the shorts are doing some things that they shouldn't even be doing that are maybe even illegal. But with that in mind, I want to keep an eye on this to see if we get some obvious drop off and or a major move up. Now, along with that, during this time frame, we had big trade volume happening on the daily side of things. Lately, the last few days, it's dropped off a little bit, but I can't help but wonder if a half hour before the market opens and at market open, I haven't been seeing some algorithmic trading to the downside, some, maybe automatic preset selling pressure. Look at this. This is a half hour before the market opened this morning. Look at that. Big red downside selling pressure. And then market open right here. Red, 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 red. Look at that. Almost looks intentional. I've seen it so many times. It just doesn't surprise me. I kind of laugh when I see it anymore because I've seen it so many times over the last few years. And again, if we come back here, in about 6 months, NIO stock ran from $3.50 to over $55. Conversely, it took about 3 years for the stock price to be taken down from about $45 to that sort of sub $4 range. And to me, that means this thing can move up a lot faster than it comes down. But I want to keep tracking things and try and stay objective, which is why, for now at least, I will keep that at the bottom of the screen, with respect to the three short-term indicators that I'm kind of watching. Sentiment, I'm still tracking that. Onvo's the new sub-brand recently released. I still am just kind of watching to see if we'll get clarity. I think maybe after we get a full month of deliveries from NIO with Onvo, we'll have more of a sense of where sentiment is with NIO. But now let's shift and talk a little long-term. One of the ways that I think about NIO is I actually think about NIO as a holding company that is building out a lot of businesses, a lot of entities within it. And so when I see things like these posts and these things that NIO is doing, for example, this is NIO backed Marathon. This is the battery asset company that NIO has. And so as these entities that NIO has, that it controls, are doing some of their own things, this is kind of my overview. This is from the annual SEC filings. This is the most recent from 2023. I'll link all this in the description so you can check it out for yourselves. This is page 95 of the 503, depending on which way you're looking at it. It's 113 down here at the bottom. But for me, again, big picture overview, how much time am I willing to give this company if it is the true unicorn IDE, innovative driven enterprise that I believe it to be? And it is a holding company that is essentially building out all these different businesses that on their own over the course of time can generate profit and profit and profit. I'm talking entities generating an incredibly large amount of profit, so much so that no one really knows yet how big this thing can be. This could be a Goliath, a giant in the making. That's why I picked the company. Time is the ultimate reveal. I'm willing to give it the time. And that's why the long term kind of remains in play for me. And as per that, I've got the three first or initial early on major growth phases for NIO: market awareness, profitability, BaaS, battery as a service. My thought was, and in fact, fun fact for those who don't know, I started a channel because I kept asking people to talk about battery as a service early on and try and offer an evaluation of what they thought it could do, generating revenue. And no one would talk about it. So I finally said, all right, that's it. I'll just start a channel and start talking and sharing some of my research and talk about this battery as a service. But my thought was, what does NIO look like once the NIO, the premium brand that NIO has 1 million cumulative sales, and they just surpassed 600,000. So we've still got a ways to go. In the meantime, they're coming out with sub brands, and I'm just watching the business, all the different entities for NIO continue to grow. I don't know if anyone even knows how many entities NIO has at this point, but that's one of the things that I'm very bullish on, very excited about. So on screen now, this is kind of a snapshot of where we are for the year of 2024. This is battery electric vehicle, BEV brands. This is the sales. And you see NIO. What's really impressive to me about this being at the number 5 spot is NIO has been selling premium vehicles. We're talking about higher priced vehicles versus most of their competition who are not. They are selling vehicles that their average prices are not in the 40,000 US dollar range or above, which is where a lot of NIOs have been. So that is an indicator that it is, doing well, relatively speaking. However, this is the bigger picture overview. This is all passenger vehicle brands and those sales to this point during the year. And you see NIO is not on screen, but what you'll also see is now we're away from the all green. And the reason for that is the blue represents ICE sales. Those are gas sales. So in the future, China will have all NEVs, which means they will either be orange or green. Orange represents the NEV, green represents the BEV. And as you'll note here, the major competition that NIO is going after, the premium brands, BMW, Mercedes, and Audi, are still selling a lot of vehicles. And it's almost all blue, which means there are a lot of future sales that are going somewhere, but not necessarily to these brands. They're going to be either orange or green. And what I'm wondering is how fast and how many of them can NIO take? NIO is already outselling the 3 of them combined with BEVs. So what happens into 2025 and beyond, I don't know, but it's going to be fun to track, monitor, and see what happens with this thing. Again, big picture overview. This is a long-term play for me, but I am enjoying tracking things in the short term. And to give you an idea of what, to me, short-term looks like and what I'm thinking with respect to the ticker and what's happening in the short term with the stock price, I will give it at least until the end of 2024 for us to get better clarity or a sense of what's going on with the NIO stock in this short term. That's my really short-term view and lens. I think we'll have some clarity by the time the end of the year is here, especially once the US election is done. And maybe we see what China is going to do with their full stimulus after the US election is over. That's kind of my thought and my take. So with that, will we get some massive crazy move from NIO like we saw before? And could it even start before the end of the year? I mean, it's possible. We've seen crazier things with the NIO stock. And certainly at this point, back in 2019, 2020, the company was nowhere near as solidified and well-positioned as it is now. And here's the best part in my mind. And I was hoping to talk about this over the weekend, but I just couldn't get to it. So it'll have to be the next video. Hopefully I'll get to it. But the short thesis is dying. The shorts are almost toast because really they have 2 plays that they can make. The one is the long term, where they are hoping and counting on a company to go bankrupt. And I don't think there's any chance of that happening with NIO from here on out. I think that is dead in the water. It's not going to happen. But I'll talk about why in that video because it's just going to take a little more time. And I don't want to go too much longer with this one. In the short term, shorts could still be in control of this thing. But I think we'll know by the end of 2024 what's going on with the stock price. For example, whether or not NIO is in a potentially new uptrend or if shorts remain in control. And so I'll just keep tracking things and sharing, kind of nerding out with the data and sharing my thoughts along the way. Thanks for stopping through. Thank you very much for sticking around to the end. A lot of people don't. So I appreciate you if you did. Have a great day. I'll see y'all again very soon.